Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. Welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen here with my co-host and Coach Dr. Sam Rhee. We are going to talk about a topic that I think I can feel the head nods of every CrossFit coach as I approach this topic, and especially owners as well. This is one of the topics. I don't talk to a lot of CrossFit box owners, but when I do, I feel like this topic always comes up. This has come up at our gym multiple times. It's the line of trying to blend how much an athlete should help out coaching, and it sounds like a catch-22 there. This is what I mean, all right? At every CrossFit class, there's a coach, and then there are athletes, and you try to separate them as much as possible. Like, hey, the coach is in charge. The athletes are trying to follow the direction of the coach, just for the sake of the class, for the sake of respect. But it goes a little bit deeper than that. We won't get into it. But what happens, this has happened in every gym I've been to. This has happened with I've heard every coach talk about this. When an athlete starts to coach
another athlete,
whether it's during a class, whether it's in a text message, whether it's on social media, is there a place for that? Should they do that? Should they not do that? I want to talk about both perspectives, and I'm going to try as hard as I can, even though I am more coach than I am athlete, to not purposely take one side, because I want coaches to hear what I have to say about it. Some of you might be surprised, but I also want athletes to hear what I have to say about it. And I'm going to start off on the I have the coach's back side, all right? The athlete, if you want to ask me yes or no, should an athlete ever coach an athlete? The answer is no. Keep your mouth shut. You're come here to work out. The coach is going to help you out. Even if you see the most horrific movement across the gym from you, right? Or you see someone really struggling, if push came to shove, I had to give you a yes or no. The athlete should never coach another athlete. And for some of you, that answer is good enough. That, hey, you know what? I'll keep my mouth shut, do my thing, stay in my lane, right? And Sam, opening thoughts on that stance.
The rule of thumb is I look at the Bison coaches taking class as athletes. And when you look at these Bison coaches, none of them, I could say pretty much almost none of them, I'm trying to think, would actually sit there and coach in class. They're taking the class. Yeah. I know when I'm taking a class, I have no interest or brain power in coaching somebody else.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to do is do my workout as best as I possibly can.
Yeah. Get away from us when we're working out.
Exactly. And, you'll see amazing athletes who are our coaches. You don't see Brian DiCarlo going around giving everyone lifting tips.
Yeah.
He's just focused on doing what he's doing.
Right.
And every coach does that.
Yeah.
So if a coach isn't sitting there coaching other athletes while they're taking the class, why should an athlete coach other people?
That's a good point. And I will say I know several people in our gym that have coached at other gyms before, and this is hard for them. And I can empathize with them a lot. They're used to coaching. They're used to being the person in the room that's helping or the person that's in charge, and they do have a wealth of knowledge. And yes, they can help. I'm not going to go on the side and say an athlete can't help another athlete. There are a lot of athletes capable of helping other athletes. So I'm never going to come across as, nope, the coach is the only one that knows their stuff. But it's a slippery slope. And I think if the athlete ever feels inclined to help someone out, if they start doing it, okay, and I'm going to give you a few reasons why you shouldn't, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But I just want to say, if this athlete starts to help that athlete out and someone else notices, then the other person starts to do it. And then now all of a sudden you have 3 or 4 different interactions of a coach trying to help an athlete, this athlete helping that athlete helping that athlete. You lose a lot of the cohesion in class when that starts to happen. And I think one of the most overlooked components to a quality CrossFit facility, CrossFit box, is the cohesion of a class. How smooth it runs, how smooth it operates, how everyone's on the same page. The second someone takes it on themselves to get in front of others and start to take their own direction and pave their own path, you start to lose that cohesion. Are you going to ruin the gym? Probably not. But you could put a negative damper on that class for a lot of different reasons. And I think one thing that I think most athletes are unaware of when they are feeling inclined to coach another athlete, they don't know the other athlete. They just don't. They saw someone do a bad deadlift or a bad snatch, or, they're chicken winging the muscle up, or they can't figure out the kip. You don't know the interactions that athlete has had with the coach over the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 years. You don't know some of their physical limitations. You don't know some of their emotional states. You don't know how they responded to this kind of coaching, but they did not respond to that kind of coaching. There's too much unknown with the athlete to athlete coaching. And that's my biggest thing that I've talked to other coaches when we talk about this, like, hey, so-and-so is, starting to mess up the class a little bit because they always feel like they have to help someone out. We always come back to that line, like the person just doesn't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't like taking away from the coach who's coaching class.
Right.
They have points to make. They're focusing on certain points of performance.
Right.
If Mike Delatorre is talking about using a tripod stance or pressure on your foot when you're squatting, and then I'm sitting there telling someone about something else, then I'm taking away from Delatorre trying to help all of these athletes.
Right.
That's not my role.
Right.
And I really respect the coaches here. Whatever it is that they're doing in class, I trust and believe that they're doing the right thing. They're going to see the athlete doing what it is that they're doing. And if they happen to miss it, fine, they miss it. But it's not for me to sit there and intervene and say something.
Right.
And like you said, and I know a lot of these athletes as a coach. Like, I've watched them, but I'm still not going to sit there, even though I do know something about them, to say something.
Right.
That's not my responsibility.
Yep.
And heaven forbid, if I was in that role where I didn't know that person at all, wow, that would be really presumptuous and potentially dangerous for me to say something.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things an athlete can do when you're talking about coaching other athletes is tell them to put more weight on the bar. And, and we've had that. And this is years ago, so, we don't have to try and get into who it was. Most of you guys don't know, but we've had athletes here in the middle of a strength session watch someone really struggle through a lift and like, let's go heavier. Come on, you could do it. And they come from a good place. They always do. And like, that's where this gets a little tough to deal with. Like, you always have someone that's coming from a good place. They think the person across the gym, but I can almost guarantee you that the person after, if I'm an athlete and I'm helping Vivian hit her squat, she hits a 95-pound front squat, and I get all pumped up, high five, fist pound. I'm like, put another 15 pounds on that bar. Let's go. Let's go for a heavier one. Chances are you didn't watch Vivian after her squat. You didn't see how she walked around. You just see how she like grabbed her back a little bit, or you don't have the memory bank to know that 3 months ago when she went for the 110 front squat, it didn't. She hurt her wrist. These are the kind of things that coaches know, or at least we talk to each other about. And that's why, even if you really are trying to do this out of support for another athlete, it's best to just kind of know what you don't know, and just understand that there's a time and place to tell people to push a little harder at the end of the workout, clap your hands, right? But you can support someone without telling them what to do. And I think that's something that everyone needs to kind of take away from this conversation is, support can come in so many different ways. As an athlete, it probably should not come in the way of coaching or tell them to go harder, faster, heavier, because there's a lot of negative effects that can come from that. So that's kind of, now, what about the athlete, Sam, that eventually one day wants to be a coach and they're trying to show other coaches that like, hey, I know my stuff. What's your stance on that? Like if you came up to someone said like, hey, like I try not to coach as an athlete and just be an athlete, do your thing. And they come back to you and say, well, someday I really want to coach. Like, what's your response?
I can't imagine anyone actually saying that. I can't imagine someone saying, I want to be a coach, so I want to start talking to other athletes and coaching them.
Yeah.
That would blow me away.
Really?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have a response?
I don't know. I would be flabbergasted because before I was...
How about this? You know that they want to coach. Or kind of to show the people that they know what they're talking about.
Life is not an audition for everything. I mean, when you're auditioning to be a coach, coaching others in lieu while another coach is coaching is not the way to audition.
Yeah, right. It could actually set you back.
Right. So what would I want to see in a potential coach? Someone who follows the directions. They move well. They are a great athlete by their standards.
Right.
And
Positive presence.
And they're very positive, right? So they're adding to the class rather than detracting. And and if they're coaching, more likely than not, they're detracting from the class presence itself.
Right.
If they're distracting from the coach and not making, I mean, if you could make that coach better in some way in your class by either setting the right example, doing the right thing, being the person who adds a positive presence, man, I would want to pick that person out to be a coach. Not because they're sitting there telling Nick how to front squat, like better.
Yeah.
That is someone who I wouldn't want to be a coach.
Yeah. So the point of that is, like, if you are trying to show show someone that you want to coach and you are a good coach and you know your stuff, you could actually be setting yourself back by interjecting and coaching when you shouldn't be coaching. Another angle I want to throw this at, and this is from the perspective of the athlete that's being overcoached by the coach and the other athletes, right? So if you're an athlete and you have someone barking instructions at you that is not a coach, I've seen this at competition before as recent as yesterday. And again, everyone is always coming from the right place with this. And I've made this mistake. So I don't want to put anyone on blast here. I've made this mistake at a competition, right? Where someone's clearly struggling with a movement. It could be a lift. It could be a gymnastics. It could be the pace of the workout. It could be how long they're resting. And they look into the crowd, and, there's 9, 8, 10 people there supporting them. And at some point, there's 7 people saying a different cue. And the person just looks like wide-eyed. Like someone's like, like let's say it's a power clean. Like, get your butt down at the start. Like, shrug harder. Keep your knuckles down. Get your head high. Get your elbows through. And like the person's just like, wait, what? That is a very similar situation that when a responsible coach in a class is usually focusing on 1 or 2 cues. It could be with one person or it could be the entire class. Like usually when I coach a clean or a deadlift, I try to just focus on one rather than give them 18 different things, right? And just hope that one of them sticks, right? And I'm still working on that as a coach. You have to try to get less wordy sometimes, right? But that is what the athlete is going through. It's if the coach just spent 10 minutes emphasizing the position of your body off the ground when you start a power clean, right? And that's what they're focusing on. And all of a sudden, you got some athlete coming over and like, yo, if you keep your knuckles down, shrug harder, get your head high, and get your elbows really through, like you're gonna get that lift. Like, hey, you came from a good place, and hey, they're not bad cues either. But now this person is gonna take the attention away from the starting position that their coach is having them work on. And now, instead of you getting them better at the lift, you just threw too much at them. And now they're no longer focusing on what the coach wanted them to focus on. Right? I think that's really hard for an athlete to take a lot of different cues, and then that gets compounded if if those different cues are coming from 4 different people. And after every single time they lift, it almost gets to the point you're like, all right, like I don't even know what I'm doing anymore.
They emphasize that in the L2. They said, listen, and we were taking athletes through progressions for movements and there was an athlete who was following what the coach was doing, but was not picking up on some other things. Like maybe they were swaying their back a little bit or something. Right. And he said, that's okay. Listen, we're focusing on this first. Right. And then we'll focus on the other stuff in addition. But like you said, you can't throw too much in there. Right. And I know as a coach, like you said, you have to focus on certain points of performance that day. You can't focus on 12. Right. You're focusing on 2. Mm. And maybe the next time around, you make a mental note. Okay, well, Susan did this really well, and I did notice the other thing, but we're gonna focus on it one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Even a well-meaning, knowledgeable athlete who knows what's going on and says, "Oh, you were also not doing this." You're gonna blow their mind, right? And it's like golf swings or anything else that's complicated. Yeah, like you have to focus on a progression.
That's a nice parallel right there. It's a great parallel because every time I golf, you have a bad drive and you focus on this, like, oh no, it must have been this, and then it's that, and then you go to swing your next drive on the next hole, and you're thinking about 4 different things, and you end up having your worst drive of the day. Because your mind went in too many different places.
Too many different places. And I feel like athletes can be very knowledgeable, well-meaning. They might be exactly right. That athlete isn't doing that thing that they're supposed to be doing. Right. But that's not the point of what that might be at that situation.
Yeah. So that's going to help me turn the conversation to the other side. So I'm big on this. You guys could probably clearly see what side of Sam and I are on of this debate, but I do think in any responsible debate or 2-sided discussion, you should spend time talking about the other side. And I am going to look at it from the athlete's side. And you might even feel like I am defending the athlete that does the overcoaching here. But again, I want everyone, coaches included, to get both perspectives. And let's go into the fact that a lot of times, not always, a lot of times, an athlete that does take it on themselves to coach, what they are coaching is correct, right? Like they do know their stuff. I know some people here that are really good with Olympic lifting or gymnastics or endurance, and they just been doing CrossFit for 10 years. They've seen so many different things, right? And they have a wealth of knowledge, and they see someone that just started last week and they come over and they want to help them with the kip or help them with the hand position on snatch or hook grip, right? You can understand that in some cases, an athlete could be like, you know what, I can help this person out. F everything else, I'm just going to go be a good person. And honestly, you're not wrong. If you're just talking about, are you a good person or not? There's other angles to it. But Sam, thoughts on, this is going to be hard, but defending the athlete a little bit and acknowledging that a lot of them do know their stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I've broken my own rule, and I have coached other athletes. It 99% of the time is with Susan.
Yeah, right.
It's someone, my spouse. I know her well.
Yep.
It sometimes I'm a little careful when I do coach her
Yes,
because because we're married.
Yep.
And I do remember one time specifically when I was next to her working out, and her wall balls weren't reaching the target, and I was like, you're not hitting your wall balls to the target. And pretty much 99% of what happens is she gets pissed.
Yeah.
And then she realizes I'm not really trying to be a dick.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Part of a coach's job is to be a dick sometimes.
Well, I want to make sure she wants to make standard.
Yes,
it's not like she's necessarily realizing, or she realizes it and she says, listen, that was the end of 200 wall balls.
Right.
Like, I know I wasn't reaching standard.
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
Like, there's no way I could meet standard at that point. I was just doing my best to survive.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes she does ask me how did this look or how did that look? And sometimes I will give my advice, but very sparingly. I usually say, you got to talk to Dave about it.
Right.
Because she's doing a lot of next level.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes I will do it. It's not often. And I don't think that you're going to go to CrossFit jail for occasionally giving a tip or two.
Right.
It's just that constant.
Yeah, it's the constant
thing.
Yeah. Like example, right? Like if we're up tomorrow's workout, right? We have thrusters, right? Like let's say you have someone that's somewhat new and they don't really, there's like a correct way and wrong way to hold a barbell on a thruster, right? And if you have the mobility, you should kind of get that bar on your collarbone and let it sit in your fingertips, right? And kind of just grab it on the way up, right? If someone just started and they're kind of, gripping this thing with their palm and their elbows are behind the bar, if you simply go up to like, hey man, like try to get that bar, is that too much coaching? To me, something positional like that, like I'm totally fine with an athlete saying like, hey, maybe, just try to see if it helps you to put that bar in the front rack. But know what the best move to do for an athlete, we're going to go back to having the coaches back here, is tell the coach. I've had so many people do that over the years. Like, hey, so-and-so is not, keeping their heels down when they squat, or they're not gripping the bar correctly on the thrusters. And in a big class, the coach has to not get butthurt about that and like just say like, okay, like I didn't see it. There's 24 people in class, blah, 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 whatever reason, right? You go over and you do the coaching. And I think that's the kind of the best way to handle something. Like if you really see this burning, like, all right, his back is really rounded right now, I'm just going to go tell the coach real quick and to help him out.
Absolutely. There are two types of things. One is like safety. So if someone's moving in a really unsafe manner,
right,
definitely point that out to the coach.
Right.
For sure. Like I see someone really leaning back or they're really potentially compromising their shoulder on something.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I will not say it to the athlete. I will, unless it's Susan. But I will definitely let the coach know like, wow, he's really like, he must be, is he tired? Is he really swaying like that? Otherwise, even most of the time when I see someone not moving well, mainly because they're relatively new, I know a lot of athletes, they're not moving well because they bite off. I have like two people in mind in the 6 and 7 a.m. class where it's too heavy. They want to RX everything.
Yeah, right.
And they're sitting there struggling.
Yeah.
And I know their movement pattern is bad because of it. I don't say anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't say a thing,
Right.
because I know that athlete.
Yep.
I know no matter what I say, they can't even do it right anyway.
Right.
It's too heavy. They're too
Mm-hmm.
tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I can barely do my own work right now.
Right.
So maybe after class, I might mention it to the coach, like, hey, Mike, so-and-so, wow, that was pretty rough for him or something.
No, an environment like that, a situation like that, what I think an athlete could do, it's not coaching, but it's helping. And I think that's the line that needs to be drawn is like there's helping, there's coaching. You gotta know which one you're doing. If you're helping, I think it's okay that after the class is over, like people clean their stuff up. Instead of going to the person and saying, you should do this, you should do that, this is how you do this, maybe give, especially someone that's new, because this always helps, is kind of like a little case study of yourself. Like, hey, like back when I first started, like I really thought that I was strong enough to handle that 20-pound wall ball, but I just noticed that like I couldn't squat with it all the way down. I couldn't hit the wall. So I really went to a lighter ball for like my first 3 months. And like sometimes a little thing like that is going to go so much deeper than you telling someone how to, like, you got to get lower in your squat. You got to do this. Like having a new person get a case study person from an actual CrossFitter that's doing well right now, been here a long time, kind of relating to like I used to be in my shoes. All right. So maybe if I follow the progression you did, it'll help me out a little bit. That's not coaching to me. That's just like helping the person understand that, hey, getting pretty fit with CrossFit can take a pretty long time. And I want you to know where I was when I started 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll do that too. I'm thinking of this one person, and I went to him and I said, yeah, wow, that was a really hard workout.
Yeah.
Especially at that weight.
Right.
And he actually said, well, maybe, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should have gone down a little bit on it. And I was like, yeah, it's really hard to move well in that 4th round or 5th round with that. I was like, that sounds good.
Yeah. Like that's a great little, just a great avenue to help someone without getting too specific and feel like you're coaching them, like those conversations that happen after the class, I think are clutch. Now, here's another thing, Sam. Would you ever, there's people that will post videos of themselves, like doing a lift or something or doing a workout. And is it technically coaching if you are at home and you're just surfing through your Instagram and you saw, some random person do a snatch and you're like, you know what? Like, I think I could, just send them a quick note about this lift. Is that technically coaching, do you think, to you?
No, not at all.
I don't think so either. I think that if someone is going to take time out of their day at home, not at the gym, not in a class setting where other people are coaching them at the same time, and say like, hey, here's a little note about your lift. I think this could help this helped me a lot. This helped this person a lot. I think that's totally within the grounds. I think athletes should, if you really want to have that strong desire to help someone out, we're really trying to keep it out of the gym. Ash has those house rules posted somewhere. I think they're in the corner now. But one of the biggest things that we had initially as a rule in the gym is the coaches do the coaching, the athletes do the working out, and just keep it simple, keep it black and white like that. But when you're not in the gym, we're not going to tell you what to do outside the gym. We're not going to tell you who to text or who not to send videos of. I think that's where the opportunity lies with a coach, with an athlete that feels like they have something to offer another athlete. It would be outside of the walls.
Absolutely. I can think of a number of times I've sent my lift videos to different people to get their opinion about it. Mm-hmm. And they weren't necessarily my coach. It was just someone else.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that?
No. Yeah.
Nothing.
That's where I think you have to, coach, an owner, like you have to remove yourself from trying to police what people do outside the gym.
Yeah. I mean, no one should feel uncomfortable soliciting advice from anyone outside the gym on their own. If I go drop in on some other box, on Sunday and they give me advice and all that, like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right. Exactly. I agree. So another thing I think an athlete has the grounds or could make a case is if they think the coach, and this is going to get a little hairy, if they think the coach is purposely not paying attention. Like if you see a coach like constantly sending text messages, or you see a coach, eating their lunch, or they're not even in the room. Like we've heard horror stories of people dropping in at gyms and the coach isn't in the room during the workout. Like they're eating lunch in the back room, or, I would say in our day and age, it's more common where someone's just constantly on the phone doing their own thing and not really paying attention to the people in class. And an athlete might just, like, F this coach. I don't respect this coach. I love this gym. Do you think they have a right to be like, if this coach is not going to watch, I'm going to watch and I'm going to help? What do you think?
No, two wrongs don't make a right. Absolutely not.
So what do you do as an athlete in that situation?
Oh, well, this goes beyond athletes coaching athletes.
Right.
This is a systems issue.
Okay.
And
Bring it to the owner.
y-
Do you want a tattletale like that?
I mean, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
If you're okay with the coach, bring it up to the coach.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of cojones to do that most of the time.
It does.
You may need to go with the owner, but honestly, in this day and age, people are so non-confrontational. Unless you love the box,
Yeah.
unless you're in love with the people there.
Yeah.
If you're pretty new, I'd go find another box.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I wouldn't want to necessarily have to troubleshoot somebody else's issues about this. I mean, if it happens once or occasional,
Yeah.
not so bad, but your coach, you should pick your box based on your coaches and the environment they provide, the education they are, what they do for you.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of coaches that are doing that, that's a red flag.
Yeah, it's a major red flag.
You should not be sitting there saying, "Oh, I'll take it upon myself to now coach people."
And trust me, over the years, guys, I've had people reach out to me about coaches in the past, and so-and-so didn't seem interested. Some so-and-so seemed stressed out. Maybe they're going through something. So-and-so was not paying attention. And, there's always two sides to every story. I would never go to a coach and be like, yo, you suck. What happened? I would always just go and talk to them and be like, again, you always have to ask questions before you make accusations, right? So, you don't take one person's opinion and run with it. But I do think, in my opinion, like that move would just be go to the head coach or go to the owner and just maybe ask a question or two like, hey, do you guys have any standards or systems for a coach paying attention? There are some people that are needier than others, right? They always want the attention every time they come to the gym. That's always tough to deal with as well. But if it's a prevalent problem that keeps popping up and an athlete sees that the coach is not doing their job, the move is not to go take it on yourself to coach. The move is to probably go to the owner, go to the head coach, or if you want to be confrontational, go to that coach actually in real time. And bring it up and just see if you can find a solution to that problem. But I understand that the athlete has a burning desire to help, like what we talked about earlier. But like Sam said, it's not the right decision to take it on yourself to start coaching. Two wrongs don't make it right. So the last thing I want to talk about in regard to this topic is I want to just use a few examples. We don't have to get too individual at our gym because a lot of people listen to this podcast that don't know who Laura Thierry is or Aaron Syvertsen, right? But I want you guys to every now and then, if you feel this burning desire to coach, I want you to spend some time observing some people in classes, whether you're actually working out in the class or you're here early or you're just, sitting around. Watch some of these like main athletes that have been here for a long time. Some of our best athletes, they don't do it. They're not, I don't think Aaron's ever barked any instructions on how to do handstand push-ups. Not that he knows how to do it. No, I'm just kidding. No, but look, Laura Thierry's been CrossFitting for longer than almost everyone in our gym. And unless someone seeks her out and says, hey, Laura, like, what do you think about this? Or how can I get better at this? She comes in, she's a foot soldier. She does her thing. She works hard. She goes home, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's something that we should all kind of put more thought into, is observing some of these athletes that have been here for a really long time, have a steady presence at the gym, and see how they interact with other athletes.
Absolutely. That goes to what I said about bison coaches taking classes. When I see them, they're doing their job as foot soldiers. They're not sitting there trying to overcoach. That's what you do. Yeah. Every time you take a class, you are not the person sitting there. And people will often come to you.
Well, I'll bring that was going to be one of my closing remarks as well, but keep going.
And bug you about it. And yet, every time you've taken a class, you have never... I wouldn't know you were a coach.
Right.
And I think that should be the rule of thumb for all coaches taking classes. People should not know you're a coach.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if you do that, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that I've been in class several times where I've coached a lot here and I've coached a lot of people here. And if I'm in class, should I say this? Yeah, I don't want to coach when I'm working out either. So like I don't want to call it being bothered, but like I don't want to take away from my warm up or, just get my mind ready to go teach the kip to somebody. Right. But every time that has happened, I don't think I've ever told someone like, get away from me. I'm not coaching. Right. But I will say this, if you've ever sought me out or if you ever sought another coach out, I shouldn't just bring myself up with that. It will make that coach nervous.
Yep.
I've been in your class before, Sam, Delator, Liz, right? And someone comes and asks me to help them with their kip. I have an alarm in my head. Like I don't want to offend. And like I'll text the coach after like, yeah, just so you know, but I'll even try to, I'll be so quiet about it and be so like, I'll give 2-word cue and just walk away kind of thing. So I think an athlete could kind of help us out by not seeking out coaching if a coach is in your class. Go ask the coach. But it is, the coach's role here is to help people. And I think there's nothing wrong with the coach saying like, hey, I got to get ready for my warm up, or hey, I don't want to disrespect the coach. Maybe ask Liz or ask Mike or ask Adam. But that is a tough spot to be in. And I think athletes could maybe put some thought into making sure you don't put a coach in that spot.
I mean, there's a fine line. Like, I will often get asked by someone, like people like, hey, dude, what are you starting? What's your start weight on
the
this?
weights? Yeah.
Yeah. Or how are you breaking up the pull-ups today?
That's fine.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have no problem with any of that.
But fixing movement, all that stuff.
Fixing movements is an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like evaluation of movement is an issue.
Yep.
Yeah. That sort of starts going into the line of coaching.
Yeah.
And you're right. Every coach who gets asked that stuff in the middle of a class is going to feel very nervous because, like you said, you're a coach. You don't want to disrespect the coach who's coaching.
Yeah.
And
it's set the example.
Yeah, and honestly, like I said, we're focused on trying to move as well as we can during the workout itself as well.
Yep, I agree. All right, guys. Well, hopefully that sheds some light on just a topic that I've had come up since 2013. Several times in several gyms, not just people here. Because again, it's a group of people that are selfless for the most part, and they do have a lot to offer in terms of help. But I just think there's a time and place for it.
I almost forgot. There's one other thing I want to ask. How about we just talked about open gym last episode. What if someone comes in during open gym with another athlete and is like coaching them during open gym?
That is a good angle. I mean, we could take that to the extreme of saying like a non-coach, can they come in here and train someone at our facility? That's a slippery slope. I mean, just helping someone out at open gym, in my opinion, it's not a class. It's not structured. I'm all about it. Like if a non-coach wants to help out another non-coach with muscle ups on a Sunday, I'm all about it. I think that's a part of the community field. And again, my deal is always the structure of a class can't get screwed up by someone else an athlete coaching an athlete. And even though I can understand where they're coming from, but when there is no structure of an actual class, I'm all about it. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we shouldn't have egos in terms of, no, we can only coach bison athletes.
Yes, yeah.
If someone says, hey, they're really good at something and, hey, they're there on Sunday, it's like, hey, can you watch me do this? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would just make sure doesn't turn into like a structure. Like, hey guys, I'm doing a muscle up clinic on Sunday at 9:00. I think it's got to be a little bit more low key than that, because again, the second it goes to a structure, like you're starting to straddle that line, and you're probably crossed it. All right, thank you guys. We will see you next week, and have an awesome week. Thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.